culture likes to make things simple, and gender isn't.
It was the constant fight of me saying there's nothing wrong with being this kind of girl as opposed to, well, I'm not a girl.
We really see transgender as an umbrella term.
I know lots of people, lots of men, who have vaginas.
It's not always easy to be in the middle.
I so prefer someone to just treat me like a human being.
Our culture has a pretty simplified model of gender, or traditional gender model. A model that says someone whose body has a penis would be identified as male. They would behave in a stereotypically masculine way. They would identify themselves as a man, and they would date a woman. That's what our normative or traditional gender model is. Someone whose body, whose sex is what we consider female, has a vagina, would behave in a stereotypically feminine way, would then identify themselves as a woman, and would date men. A huge number of individuals in this world don't fit into those models.
I'm a trans man, female to male transsexual, but I identify primarily as a trans man.
I am a transgendered woman.
I identify as genderqueer because I feel like it's more accurate to how I feel in terms of my own gender identity.
People want to talk about transgender, and I always say you have to start by talking about gender. That's really the sort of critical piece in the word. I use a somewhat simplified version: sex, gender role, and gender identity. And the other piece I like to touch on is sexual orientation, largely because of its relationship to gender and the fact that sometimes people confuse it with gender. Sex is about physical characteristics, organic components in our bodies, anatomic aspects of who we are. Sex hormones like estrogen and testosterone, and the chromosomes. And it's often strongly related to genitalia. What is gender role? Well, it's essentially a social understanding of how we are in a gendered sense in the world. It can be something that we do ourselves. It can also be something that other people see in us. And typically when you have a boy, you give the boy trucks, action figures. A girl, you might give dolls, sewing kits. These are very gendered decisions. We gender color, we gender clothing. It's fine for a girl to behave as in a masculine way, what we might call a tomboy, until she reaches puberty. And then she's supposed to sort of femme up, fit in within the more powerful gender stereotypes of what a woman's supposed to behave.
Because I felt different a lot, I think I overcompensated by doing things that were kind of like hyper feminine. You know, like I had long hair, I wore dresses, makeup.
Gender identity is nothing more than how we see ourselves in a gendered way. You can't look inside your body for it, it's inside your head, it's between your ears. People translate that into one of our common cultural choices, which is either man or woman. But clearly, gender has to be unique, because we're all too complex for us to state our gender in such a simple term. The relationship between gender and sexual orientation is important to discuss here. A lot of people think that one is the other and vice versa. When people say gay, they often think they're talking about trans at the same time. And I'd like to make a distinction that all gay people are not transgender and all transgender people are not gay. Everybody has both a gender and a sexual orientation. That's the traditional gender model. That's what our media uses, that's what our advertising uses, our films use that, our paperwork. When you go into an agency, people have to fill out paperwork. They ask you to check one box or the other. They don't give you any room for complexity. the traditional gender model doesn't actually fit large numbers of people, then we're really given two choices. We can either change the people or we can change the model.
When I was a really small child, I do basically remember feeling confused as far as my own gender was concerned.
There are times in my childhood that I did feel different in terms of my gender. Like, I never really thought there was something wrong with me or there's something different about my gender, because I don't think I ever really thought about it. I just knew that I wasn't as feminine as other girls, and I just felt kind of different.
The therapist asked me if I knew the difference between a boy and a girl, and I was just sort of like, and I think at the time, people were telling me that I was a boy, but I felt like a girl, so I didn't really think there was any difference. You know, I think I was 8 years old at the time.
For most people, the sex they were assigned at birth is a pretty good match with their gender identity. For transgender people, it becomes clear very often at a young age that their sense of themselves is different than what's reflected in the mirror, what's reflected when they look down at their bodies.
I would actually physically get ill all the time when I started to develop breasts, and I started to actually get to a place where my body was becoming more woman-like, and I didn't really understand it.
I wasn't comfortable in the assigned role of being a boy. I was born, and because I had a certain genital, situation. I was. It was like that's a boy, and but I never felt that, and I don't think I was ever masculine in any way.
I was consistently challenged every single day about my gender. Somebody had to make some comment about it. Somebody had to say something about it. I was taunted by kids all the time.
And there was a lot of anxiety, I think, when I was growing up about how feminine I was. And my third grade teacher called my mother and said, "Your son is going to end up in New Orleans wearing a dress if we don't get him in therapy right now." So I think I grew up internalizing a lot of transphobia, that there was so much, and homophobia as well. There was so much anxiety about me being so feminine and trying to fix me.
There have always been people in different cultures and over time who would fit into the definition of people who live in a cross-gender way or who live outside the norms of just male or just female or just man and just woman.
I started having a lot of friends who were coming out as trans or as genderqueer, and I really didn't quite understand, and it just seemed really foreign to me. And as I started to learn, in an effort to try to understand what was going on with them, a lot of it rang true for me.
I actually met my first trans friend, and in the right moment, for whatever right reasons, he kind of just looked at me and said, "So how do you feel about your gender?" And I kind of broke down.
That's basically been my experience my entire life, that I don't really fit, that I'm an outcast, etc., etc. So that's the history. And so a lot of it for me, in terms of my process, is about trying to accept myself.
I felt really overwhelmed, not in a bad way, but definitely in a way that was 25 years in the making.
It was just really a relief to say, oh, like, I can identify as genderqueer.